Good evening. Welcome to a special edition of the International Grapevine. This is your host, Wallingford Lee. Tonight on International Grapevine, the spotlight is going to be on the Honorable Nestor Diaz, who happened to be the first Dominican judge in the Queens area. We're going to take this opportunity to go through his background a little bit to know just exactly who he is, how long he's been an attorney, and what are some of the areas of his specialty as an attorney before he became a judge. So it's going to give us, you, or viewing audience, the opportunity to know just exactly who is this judge and what does he bring to the table.
Fox 5's Jessica Formoso introduces us to Judge Nestor Diaz and shows us his journey to the bench.
If you fail to show up, a warrant could be issued against you within 30 days.
With more than 30 years in law, Judge Nestor Diaz now sits on the bench in Manhattan Criminal Court. In 2020, he was elected civil court judge in Queens, the first Dominican male judge to be elected in that borough.
Close to 500,000 people voted for me, elected me. Okay, which again I feel proud. Okay?
Due to the pandemic, he was sworn in during a virtual ceremony.
So help me God, ayúdame Dios.
Congratulations, brother.
A son of immigrants and first-generation college graduate, Diaz wanted to make a difference in his community. He saw the sacrifices his parents made when they moved to New York from the Dominican Republic.
Like a lot of the immigrants, to pursue the American dream.
He was born in Washington Heights. His father owned a bodega. His mother worked in a factory.
I couldn't be where I'm at today without the parents, because they came here without knowing English. And look where I'm at today. I wouldn't be here.
In 1982, he attended John Jay College of Criminal Justice. He graduated with a BA in Government and Public Administration. He then went off to law school at St. John's University, where he says there were very few minorities.
There were so few of us that we actually formed our own student association. My first job out of law school was working in family court. My title was Special Assistant to the Corporation Counsel for the Commissioner of Social Services. So there I will prosecute child support cases, people that owe child support.
He also worked for the FBI as an investigative support clerk. A year later, he went to the New York State Special Prosecutor's Office as a legal assistant. Eventually, he landed a job as a senior assistant district attorney at the Brooklyn DA's office, where he handled domestic violence and civil rights cases.
When I sit on the bench and I'm saying, I was destined to be here, because it's like my whole life was preparing me for this moment.
As he walks the halls of this building, puts on his robe, and heads into the courtroom, Judge Diaz says diversity in the court matters.
It's important for the people who go before the judge to see themselves in the judiciary, because then it adds legitimacy to the whole democracy. It says, okay, as opposed to this person can't identify with me. I've been on both sides of the aisle. I've been a prosecutor, a district attorney, and a criminal defense attorney. So I make it a point to listen to both sides.
So what's next for Judge Diaz?
This is the best country in the world, because only a son of immigrants that wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth can attain this level, the highest level in this legal profession. And I look forward to make history once again as the first male Dominican elected to the Supreme Court, New York State, and the County of Queens. That'll be another historic day. Court is adjourned.
Okay, thank you, Wallingford. It's always a pleasure and an honor to be with you and your audience. And the fact that in 2020, I was the first Dominican man to be elected to the Civil Court. There were actually 2 Dominican women that were elected prior to myself. Dixia Pinera Corwin was elected Civil Court in 1984, and with the recent years, Lourdes Ventura, and they're both friends of mine, very capable judges. She was elected to civil court, let's say in 2019. But I'm the first Dominican man. Now, and that was, as I said, I was elected to the civil court. But my first assignment was not to the civil court, not even to Queens County, but to Manhattan Criminal Court, the criminal court in New York County. When someone gets elected or becomes a judge, then you fall under the jurisdiction of the New York State Office of Court Administration, OCA for short, and they send you where they deem necessary. I imagine, because they didn't consult with me, I imagine because I have a strong criminal law background that they sent me to Manhattan Criminal Court. As you know, in 2020, we were still during the COVID-19 epidemic, and we still are, but now we have the vaccine, we have measures, and there was a lot of backlog. So apparently, New York County needed me. I've been on the show before and spoke about my background, but just for the pleasure of to refresh the recollection of your viewers or those who have not heard from me before, I'll do a brief summary of my background. I graduated from St. John's Law School in 1989, and I started working in family court, prosecuting child support cases and people who owe child support. And I did that from 1989 to 1986, supporting the rights of children and families. In 1996, then I went to work for the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. At that time, it was Charles J. Hines. And there I entered as a senior assistant district attorney, based on my background. I had already been an attorney for, let's say, 7 years. So I worked in the district attorney's office from 1986 to the end of 2000 until I started my own practice in 2001. And in the district attorney's office, among the bureaus I worked at was mostly a lot in the Domestic Violence Bureau, the Rackets Bureau, Civil Rights, Economic Crimes, Investigations. So I spent a lot of times in a lot of very prestigious bureaus. Then, from the time I opened my private practice, a good part of my practice from 2001 until I got elected in 2020, basically 20 years, I did criminal defense, in addition to immigration, family law, and civil litigation. So basically, when I was elected, I had about almost a quarter of a century, 25 years of criminal law experience. As a result, they sent me to criminal court in Manhattan. I think one of the questions I'm anticipating Mr. Lee's question as to about what the civil court judge do. And I think he's had civil court judges in the program in the past. But again, for the viewers that maybe have not tuned in, then a civil court judge has now a maximum jurisdiction of they can hear lawsuits of a maximum of $50,000. So let's say someone's suing for breach of contract or a lawsuit that involves $50,000 damages. I can hear the limit is $50,000. A civil court judge has New York City jurisdiction, so I could also hear criminal court cases up to a misdemeanor. And let me just summarize differences between a misdemeanor and a felony. Is a misdemeanor is cases with a maximum of 1 year in jail, and that's your assaults, like a fist fight, shoplifting, things of that nature. A felony are cases where you look at over a year in jail. That's your robberies, high-end robberies with gunpoint robberies, murders, rapes, arson, things of that nature. More serious time. Now, what's more significant now, I am very blessed that I'm at the point of making history once again. As I said, I was elected. I was the first Dominican man ever to be elected to be Queens Civil Court in the history of Queens. Now I was nominated by the Judicial Convention of the Queens Democratic Party to Supreme Court. So now I'm the first man nominated in Queens County to be basically a candidate for the Supreme Court of New York State in the County of Queens. Now, a New York State Supreme Court judge has no limit to the cases they can hear. The cases could be anywhere from over 50,000 over to hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. I could not hear felony cases, misdemeanor and felony cases. That gives you an idea. And once you're in the Supreme Court, you have a New York State jurisdiction, not just New York City, which is my current jurisdiction. So they could have assigned me technically anywhere in the state, but I expect that this time the voters who made history and elected me in 2020, they've been wanting me to come back to the Queens. They say, hey, we elected you. When are you going to come here and be the judge here? So God willing, I will be assigned to back to Queens County. The Judicial Convention, which consists of over 150, 170 judicial delegates, they got together and voted. And I'm very proud that the majority voted to vote me in as and nominated me for the position of Supreme Court. And I'm on the ballot at the general election here in Queens County of the state of New York. The general election is November 8th. Okay, so the ballot's already come out. Now, as I said, the Democratic Party's Judicial Convention nominated me. What's also significant is the Republican Party here in Queens has also cross-endorsed me. So I am now the first Dominican candidate for the New York State Supreme Court in Queens County of the Democratic Party and Republican Party. And I think this is significant because certainly no one could accuse me of not being prejudicial to any of the parties. I am blessed and appreciate that both majority political parties have decided to endorse me. It's significant not only as I am, what can I tell you, Dominican. I'm a son of immigrants, and everyone likes the story of a son of an immigrant that does well. As many of you know, I was not born with a silver spoon. I was not born with a silver spoon, but both of my parents immigrated from the Dominican Republic. So my first generation Dominican person, son of an immigrants, first generation. And just as the Spanish people, immigrants at large, which is what made this country great, and I stand by the point that the United States is one of the greatest countries in the world because only a son of an immigrant, first generation, can get to this level of achievement of being the candidate for the New York State Supreme Court. Okay,
Are you the first lawyer in your family?
The
Are
first
you the
lawyer
first
in the
attorney in
family.
the family?
The first attorney in the family. I guess the first college graduate. Uh, and I have quite an extensive background. I don't know if you want me to get into it now, but all that added to it. Uh, in the Democratic Party here in Queens, I'm very blessed to be part of this latest uh, uh, party. The the chairman of the Democratic Party, who is Congressman Gregory Meeks, he is also currently the chairman of the very prestigious Foreign Affairs Committee, which is involved with all foreign affairs. He deals with ambassadors worldwide. He's been dealing with the Ukraine issues now. So he goes all over the world. Think about this. He goes all over the world to make the world safe for democracy, to do the best to make peace, but he still finds time to come back to Queens County to make sure that we're okay. And he is an African American man, but uh, he, like I, believes in diversity in the bench. That the court bench should reflect the population that it serves. Again, let me make that clear. I'm a public servant and I'm here to serve the public. And I aspire and look forward to continuing to judge all the cases that come before me in a fair and equal way. So, and I'm proud and I support Congressman Gregory Meeks' vision of diversity. Uh, there were 4 spots for Supreme Court. One was Lee Mayerson. He was renewing his term of 14 years, which leads me to another point. The term of service for a Supreme Court justice in the state of New York is 14 years. So Supreme Court Justice Lee Mayerson was up for his Supreme Court position to renew it. His 14 years is about to lapse. So they selected him. And he's a very competent person, and he, I guess, represents the white Jewish part of the population. They also nominated Lee Cheng, who's Asian American. He's another civil court man, and he also was elected in 2020 with me. Thirdly is Denise Johnson, Civil Court Judge Denise Johnson, African American woman. Book Lee, all the other judges are my friends, all capable, and I am the so-called Latino candidate. So you have a diverse platform for Supreme Court. Okay, so I am honored and privileged and blessed to have this nomination, and I look forward to, with the support of the people of Queens, to vote for me and elect me to the Supreme Court and make history once again.
I think that's a great idea if it happens here in November, and it's a great opportunity for you. You've had over 25 years plus as an attorney. You have the background, you have the experience, you have the how. You have worked in immigration matters, you have worked in criminal matters. When you were going to school to become an attorney, did your parents talk you into being an attorney, or is that something that came from you? Were you challenged while you were in school? Were you ever
Uh,
intimidated by the fact that you would be an attorney?
as a son of immigrants, I saw the hardships that my parents and other immigrants experienced in this country. They came from the Dominican Republic, as I mentioned, uh, uh, to escape the dictatorship of Trujillo, Rafael Leonidas Trujillo, which was a dictator in the Dominican Republic at the time. This was in the late 50s, early 60s. I was born in 63. Just to give you an idea, I'm dating myself, but when I was born, uh, Kennedy was still president of the United States. So they came here to give their children the opportunities the freedoms that they did not have in their native country. And they came as all immigrants do to work hard and support their families and the communities. So I did not think I was going to be an attorney. This it's funny that your life seems to prepare you, and destiny is apparently was destined to be a judge, and but just things you go through life. As my parents came here, they didn't speak English. They didn't even never attended high school. Came with some grade school experience, but it was an agricultural society, so everyone had to take care of and support the farm in the country. And I was here. I was bilingual, and I helped translate for my parents documents and conversations, and for them, for my aunts and uncles, and extended so on and so forth. So I was already in a position that I was already helping people. And the way I look at the roles of an attorney, he's a professional problem solver. A lot of times people come with problems, and they hired him because of his skills and knowledge and authority to solve problems. So it segued into my pursuit of law. I first thought I was going to be an engineer because when I was in high school, I had a good aptitude for science and math. But soon after college, I realized that's not what I want to do. I enjoyed history, and I remember in high school, a, a teacher suggested I should pursue law because law is a good part of it is you apply precedent decisions, prior decisions, and apply them to the future. History repeats itself, and an argument, a lawyer looks at arguments that were made in the past, different cases that were made in the past, that will support their argument and their client's position. So once I started taking courses and going to courtrooms with internships and other jobs that involve the courts, then I seem to have developed a knack for it. Uh, I have apparently natural affinity, already talking to people, working with people, and I went to John Jay College of Criminal Justice, which is part of the City of New York's school system. When I was in John Jay College, I got an internship with the Attorney General's Office, Bureau of Consumer Frauds and Protection, where I helped the attorneys at the Attorney General's Office in providing support information to consumers regarding their rights. Eventually, while in college, I got a job with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI for short, and there I provided. It was assigned to the investigative support information systems. We provided information to special agents in the field. Excuse me. I was assigned to.
How detailed was that position, as you mentioned? How detailed
What was
that
that?
that position working with the FBI? How detailed was that like?
Well, I was basically support. The FBI, as you know, is nationwide, and this is the beginning. This is in the uh, mid '80s. Computers were still developing. I was working at the computer, getting information and providing to the nationwide network uh, to the agents in the field. My area was in domestic terrorism and organized crime. So, and by virtue of me providing information to the agents in our computer network, the agents from one end of the country could get information that possibly relevant to the agents on the other end of the country. So that was very rewarding work. But eventually, I got admitted into St. John's School of Law, and they would they I couldn't work full time in the FBI and be a full time law student. So unfortunately, I had to leave the FBI, thinking that perhaps I would return as a special agent, what have you. But fate had other things in store for me. So while I was in law school, I worked with other attorneys as their paralegal, but eventually I wound up working with the New York State Special Prosecutor's Office, and which was working on a very prestigious case at the time, refers to it as the Howard Beach case, a very famous case, and I was
I
part of the
remember it
research
well.
team. All right, and then we had a good conviction on that case, and then I was also signed to the. So I was on the research team of that case. I was also on the team involving investigation and prosecution of police and political corruption. Eventually, and the special prosecutor at the time was Charles J. Hines, my future employer at the district attorney's office. So see how life circles back. So eventually, I graduated from law school in 1989, and that's when I started working in the family court. My title was a special assistant to the Corporation Counsel for the Commissioner of Social Services, where I worked to prosecute child support cases, I informed you. And then Charles Hines wanted me to come work with him again, this time as a district attorney's office, a assistant district attorney, ADA for sure. And as I told you, I went to work at the Diaz office until I went to private practice. And then when I was in private practice, my life developed. I was active in the community, working behind the scenes with many elected officials, and as working in the criminal defense and immigration law. Because again, as my bilingual, I already had a background of helping my parents and other immigrants with their issues, and it segued into helping immigrants with their immigration uh, issues, criminal defense, and other issues. So I was already active in
Obviously,
the
it's very
community,
clear that your
and it became,
background,
I
you
got
did a
diagnosed
lot
with
of
the
different
Democratic
things
Party.
in your background. No, I was saying it's obviously your
There
background
you
is
go.
powerful. You did a lot of different things that brought you into the position that you have right now. It shows knowledge, experience, know-how, and that you were prepared to be a judge. Did you in your wildest dream ever thought that you would be a judge one day?
I didn't think in the beginning I'd be a judge, but as things progressed, then it seemed that this is what my destiny was. Very interesting thing, whether you want to consider this a sign or prophecy. It's interesting. About 10 years before I got elected, and the show's producer, one of the show's producer, Julio, heard the story. I got a license plate. Let's say 1991. No, excuse me, around 2000. Well, but basically around 2010, 2011, the license plate said ELJ 2020, which you could interpret it as El Juez 2020. So this is about 10 years before 2020, and I thought it was a joke. I said, hey, this is funny, this is cute. I have a license plate that says El Juez 2020, and every time I got a new car, they ask, do you want to change the plate? He says, no, I like that plate. It's like my good luck charm. So as things started progressing, it wasn't so much of a joke, but to me, took on like a prophecy. And the point of the fact is, I was elected El Juez, El Judge, in 2020. So isn't that something?
It certainly is.
So
Question: as
eventually,
a judge, can you be passionate
go
about
ahead.
a case? You are not allowed to be passionate as a judge.
Well, you're a human being. You feel for people, but in the end, I have to apply the law to cases, and you have to treat everybody fairly and equally, which is what I do. I make it a point to treat everyone in my courtroom with respect. Uh, I say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the litigants, because sometimes I have to be in night court. Night arraignments, deciding bail on the new cases. Even now, although I'm a civil court judge, by day when I'm assigned to night court, we take on the role as an acting Supreme Court justice. I'm acting the role of a Supreme Court person so then I could hear felony cases and decide bail on misdemeanor felony cases. So I already have exposure to both sides, misdemeanors and felonies. But interestingly enough, and when I'm sitting on the bench and listening to his cases, I feel it was my destiny to be here because, as I told you, I was a prosecutor, but also a defense attorney. And
So you wear
my
many different
background.
hats. You wear different hats.
So I've been on both sides. I've been on both sides of the people that come before me. I was a prosecutor, a district attorney, and a defense attorney. And my experience, I find, provides me a unique perspective in judging the cases. I make it a point to listen to both sides before making a decision. Okay. In my experience, when I used to go before judges, it seemed that sometimes judges would make the decision before I even approached them, so they wouldn't even have an open mind. But I made it a point to, when I become a judge, to have an open mind and listen to all the litigants and let them get to the point to the course before I make a decision.
Very important. How do you handle a conflict of interest on the bench? Because that's an interesting
What
one.
was
As a
that?
judge, sometimes there's conflict of interest. How do you handle that on the bench?
Well, if there's a conflict of interest, let's say, let's say an easy case. Let's say, for instance, God forbid, I was going to mention my wife, but let's say my sister or sibling, or let's say my spouse, was arrested and comes before me. That's obviously a conflict of interest. There's no way I would handle that case.
Yes.
We have to get another judge. There are certain cases that there's a conflict of interest. Let's say you work with somebody once upon a time or what have you. Then you have to inform all the litigants. I think this is a conflict of interest because X, Y, and Z. I worked with this person, or I worked against this person. So I want you to be aware and of the conflict of interest, and you consent. Let's say I make a decision that I could be fair and impartial after self-examination. Then I turn it over to the litigants and ask. I explain to you my conflict of interest. I think in this case I could be fair and impartial, but you consent to me hearing the case and put it on them. So that's another way to handle it. Because again, as you can see, I've been an attorney for over 30 years and come into contact with a lot of people. So it is possible one day I'll come across someone where I have a potential conflict. So that's a way I would handle that.
As a judge, what type of preparation you do as a case become in front of you? Do you get a file telling you what's going on? What is your typical preparation as a judge?
Well, listen, when I take the bench, a lot of times you don't have time, especially when I deal with arraignments. Arraignments is a case where someone was just arrested, and the goal is to try to arraign someone within 24 hours. Arraignment, just to briefly explain, after someone gets charged with a crime and they go before the court, that is the first time that a person gets official charges of what they're being charged with, criminal charges, and the judge decides a security order. Security order takes the different versions. A person could be released under recognizance, recognizing release on the basis of their and without any bail, recognizing based on the strength of the case and their own background, criminal court background, that they could come back to court on their own. There's supervised release. There's bail, where you set bail, and then there's also remand, where you put someone in without any monetary bail. That's usually the reserved for the most extreme cases. Let's say a homicide, someone's accused of murder, murder is an easy case. Cash bail is you set a monetary bail. So when you get these cases, they're brand new by and large, and you have to make a quick decision because they give you the file. You take a moment to review it. I look at the charges. I look at the uh, his rap sheet, which has his criminal background, and I look at how many times the person's been arrested and convicted of a crime. Conviction is a factor. How many times they failed to come back to court? In other words, were warrants issued against this person? Has he been charged with a violent offense in the past? Has he violated orders of protection? And does he have a firearm conviction? Does he have a sex offense conviction? Has he been convicted for escape? Uh, so these are all significant factors that play into your calculations. Were some bail reform laws that were passed by the state government in 2019, and in 2020 they went into effect during the COVID-19, and it limited the judge's ability to set bail in a lot of cases. And when you find that some security order is warranted, you have to still now pick the least restrictive means. Is it monetary bail? Is it supervised release, or some other non-monetary form of securing the person's return? And by and large, most misdemeanors cannot. We don't have the option to set bail, monetary bail. This has got a lot of press attention. As a result of the new laws, we can no longer consider public safety as a factor. Only risk of flight, the risk that the person is going to come back or not. So to get back to your answer, there's a very short period of time with which to look at the case. So that I rely upon the representations of both persons, and a lot of the attorneys, most of the attorneys that come before me are very confident, very prepared, very significant, and they already have information that they represent both their points of view. So I hear from the district attorney, he gives me his or her position on the case. They explain the basic facts and why a security order should be set. Then I hear from the defense attorney, and they explain their point of view after they interview their client. And I take both. As I said, I listen to both sides, and that helps the decision-making process because you assume they bring all their significant positions to my attention before I make a decision. So while I'm listening to them, I'm also looking at the file. So that's basically what happens in these criminal court arraignments.
That's understandable. Well, Mr. Diaz, unfortunately, we have kind of run out of time somewhat, but I want to take this opportunity on behalf of the family of the Grapevine to tell you thank you so much and to wish you the best. You've been a great attorney, and I know you'll be a fantastic judge because you seem to be the guy that always deal with facts, and that's one of the most important things when you're dealing with the system, whether it be politics or whatever. Again, I don't have words to thank you for being my special guest. And I hope that you come back on our program.
Well, I thank you for this opportunity. Well, I thank you for this opportunity to go and talk between you and your viewers. I thank you for your public service of providing information to the viewers. And so thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to coming to the show in the future.
I certainly will have you back.
Thank you.
You've been a pleasure always. Well, we've come to the end of the show. We have run out of time. We want to take this opportunity on behalf of the family of the Grapevine to thank the Honorable Nestor Diaz for being our special guest and sharing his input and ideas and his experience. Again, we thank our audience for viewing our program, and we expect to see you next week at the same time, at the same place.